Her name is Fatima. She's 32 years old and she teaches English in a secondary school in Plateau State, in Jos to be precise. She is Muslim, her husband is Muslim. Her family has voted APC in every election since 2015, mostly because of their trust in Buhari. In 2023, for the first time in her adult life, Fatima did something that surprised even herself. She voted for a Christian Igbo man from Anambra State on a party, the Labour Party, that she had never heard of before 2022. She did not tell her husband that night. She told her best friend, a woman named Grace, a Christian teacher, who sits 2 desks away, the next day. Grace had also voted Obi. They laughed about it together. 2 women, different religions, same ballot. What is happening to Fatima is part of a story that has never been fully told about the 2023 Nigerian presidential election. Everyone knows that Obi won the Southeast. Everyone knows he performed well in Lagos. But what very few people have analyzed properly is the specific coalition of unexpected voters, Muslim women in the North Central, Yoruba elders who opposed Tinubu, NLC union members, Catholics in unlikely places, first-generation urban professionals that gave him 6.1 million votes on a party with almost no structure, no governor, and no federal presence. That hidden coalition is what this video is about. Because if Obi's 2027 strategy is going to work on a new platform on the NDC, the people who need to understand that coalition most are not his campaign team, they are the voters themselves. Like Fatima, who is already wondering whether it meant anything and whether she would do it again. Before we go deeper, if you are just finding Naija News Watch, welcome. This channel exists to break down what is really happening in Nigerian politics without the noise and without the spin. If that is the kind of analysis you enjoy, hit subscribe and stay with me, because this story is about to get a lot more interesting. Let us catch you up on the facts, because the 2023 voter coalition story is not one that most of the election coverage actually told properly. Obi ran on the Labour Party platform in February 2023. He had no governors. He had no incumbent state legislatures. He had no formal APC or PDP-style ward-level structure in most of Nigeria. What he had was a movement, the Obidient Movement, built almost entirely through social media, youth networks, diaspora support, and the specific moment in Nigerian history where enough people were frustrated enough with both APC and PDP to try something genuinely different. He came third nationally. He won 6.1 million votes against Tinubu's 8.79 million and Atiku's 6.98 million. But the distribution of those 6.1 million is where the story gets interesting. He swept all 5 Southeast states. That was expected. He is Igbo. He was the Southeast son in a way that had not been true for any presidential candidate since Ojukwu. He won Lagos. That was not expected. Lagos is Tinubu's home state, the state he governed for 8 years, the state where APC's machinery is deepest. Obi took it anyway. That result, in Tinubu's own territory, was the single most shocking number in the entire 2023 result. He performed significantly above expectation in Plateau State, Fatima State. He got 14.2% of the national northern vote, not a majority, but a real, measurable presence in a region where he had no party infrastructure. Verified election results from INEC show that Obi secured 43% from the south and 14.2% from the north. 14% of the northern vote for a candidate with no northern party structure, no northern governor, and no APC or PDP political inheritance in the region. That number should have generated significant analytical attention. It largely did not. Why 2027 matters for this story? Obi is now on the NDC platform. The party is new, the structures are thin, and whether the specific blocs that delivered the 2023 hidden coalition, the unexpected northerners, the Yoruba dissenters, the NLC union members, Catholics in unlikely places, first-generation urban professionals, whether those blocs transfer to the NDC platform or stay home is the most important question for the 2027 race that nobody in his campaign has publicly answered. Now, let us look at the structural rules that shaped the 2023 coalition and that will shape whether it can be rebuilt in 2027. The constitutional spread requirement is the first and most important rule. For a presidential candidate to win outright under the Nigerian constitution, they must secure more votes than any other candidate, plus at least 25% of valid votes cast in at least 2/3 of the 36 states. That's 24 states minimum, where you need at least a quarter of the vote. In 2023, Obi met this requirement in a specific set of states, primarily Southeast, FTC, Lagos, and some North Central states. He did not meet it nationally. His failure to win enough states to meet the spread requirement is why his petition was ultimately dismissed. The tribunal found that he had not demonstrated a basis for overturning the result, even on the allegation of procedural irregularities, because his own geographic spread did not meet the constitutional threshold. For 2027 on the NDC, the geographic spread requirement is the most specific, most concrete, most operationally demanding challenge Obi faces. 43% of the South is not enough. 14.2% of the North is not enough. He needs 25% in at least 24 states. And with the NDC's documented weakness outside Kano and the Southeast, building to that threshold in 2027 requires specifically reaching and mobilizing the unexpected blocs that delivered his 2023 numbers in non-obvious places. The second structural rule is INEC's voter registration and accreditation system. The BVAS technology used in 2023 made the accreditation process significantly harder to manipulate in urban areas with high obedient voter density. Whether BVAS or an equivalent system is deployed in 2027, and whether the 2026 electoral amendments strengthen or weaken the electronic transmission requirement, will directly affect whether Obi's urban coalition can be translated into verified votes at coalition level. The third structural factor is party platform recognition. The NDC is a newly prominent platform. For the millions of voters who made their first ever Labour Party connection in 2023, the NDC is not an automatic continuation. First-time voters who registered in 2023 specifically because of Labour Party ballot visibility will need a reason to recognize the NDC ballot paper in 2027. That recognition gap is one of the least discussed but most practically significant challenges the NDC faces. Now, let us go deep. This is the part where we actually name the hidden coalition and explain each component, including the ones that should not have existed. Let's start with what the Obidient Movement actually was and was not. Behind Obi stands the Obidient Movement, a loose but powerful coalition of youths, urban professionals, reform-minded middle-class voters, diaspora supporters, and anti-establishment Nigerians frustrated with the old political order. That description is accurate as far as it goes, but it's incomplete. It misses the specific, unexpected blocks that made his 6.1 million votes structurally significant. Hidden Block 1, Yoruba Elders and Southwest Dissenters. This is the most surprising group in his 2023 coalition and the most politically significant. Obi had enjoyed the backing of a cross-section of southwestern dignitaries, such as former President Olusegun Obasanjo and Ayo Adebanjo, the late co-founder of the Yoruba socio-cultural group Afenifere, many of whom seem to have been sick enough of the sight of Tinubu and his vaulting ambition that they readily set aside their doubts about Obi's candidacy and rallied around him. Olusegun Obasanjo writing a public letter for Obi, Afenifere, the organization that is the institutional guardian of Yoruba political heritage, backing a Southeast Igbo candidate against a Yoruba APC candidate. These are not small events. They reflect a specific segment of Yoruba political consciousness that decided in 2023 that the Tinubu political machine did not represent them and that a non-Yoruba candidate was preferable to their own kinsman. That Southwest dissenter bloc is what gave Obi Lagos. not the Southeast diaspora in Lagos, though they contributed, not the urban professionals alone, though they were critical. The combination of Igbo diaspora in Lagos plus Yoruba Tinubu descent plus first-generation middle-class urban Lagos residents who had never voted before produced the Lagos result that nobody expected.
Hitting Block 2, Christian minorities in the North Central. Nigeria's North Central, the Middle Belt, is the most religiously mixed zone in the country. States like Plateau, Benue, Nasarawa, Kaduna's southern districts have substantial Christian populations living under the shadow of the Muslim ticket. Fatima's Plateau State is the most visible example. Obi's performance in the North Central significantly exceeded his performance elsewhere in the North because in the North Central, the Muslim ticket activated a defensive Christian bloc that found in Obi a candidate from a southern Christian tradition who explicitly did not campaign on religious grounds, but whose candidacy implicitly provided an option. The APC's decision to run a Muslim ticket in 2023 was the single political decision that most directly expanded Obi's potential northern coalition beyond what anyone modeled. Northern Christian minorities who might have voted PDP went to Obi because he felt newer, more credible, more untainted by the deals that defined PDP in the North. And Fatima, Muslim in Plateau, not in a religious minority, voted Obi because of his economic governance record in Anambra, his frugality argument, and the specific youth social media ecosystem that reached her across religious lines. Hidden Block 3, NLC members and labor movement activists. Obi quickly attracted an unlikely coalition, garnering support from the Nigeria Labour Congress and activists. The NLC's alignment with Obi in 2023 was one of the most underreported political developments in the entire cycle. Labor unions in industrial centers, in state capitals, in market associations have existing communication infrastructure that reaches workers at the neighborhood level. When the NLC effectively signaled support for Obi, it activated a political information channel that was entirely outside the social media ecosystem, reaching union members who may not have been on Twitter or Instagram, but who trusted their shop steward's political recommendation. This labor movement dimension is almost entirely absent from analysis of Obi's 2023 coalition, but it explains how his vote appeared in places where his social media footprint should have been insufficient to generate it. Hidden Block 4, diaspora-linked first-time voters. The Nigerian diaspora sent home over $20 billion in 2025 alone. The recipients of that money, family members in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Aba, have a specific political orientation shaped partly by their diaspora connections. They tend to be more globally informed, more economically literate about the connection between governance quality and development outcomes, and more emotionally responsive to a candidate who promises the kind of governance they see working in their relatives' host countries. The Obidient Movement in the diaspora was not separate from the domestic Obidient Movement. It was continuous with it, through WhatsApp, through international funding of logistics, and through the social pressure that family members in London and Toronto and Houston put on their relatives back home to register and vote. Now here is the pattern interrupt that changes how you should read everything about Obi's 2027 prospects. Verified election results from INEC show that Peter Obi secured 43% from the south and 14.2% from the north. 43% of the southern vote in a region that includes the southwest, which is Tinubu's home, and the south-south, which historically PDP territory. The hidden coalition was not just the southeast plus Lagos. It was a genuinely trans-regional southern phenomenon with a meaningful northern presence. The question for 2027 is specific. Obasanjo publicly lobbying for a unified opposition ticket suggests he's engaged, but Afenifere's late co-founder Adebanjo, who was one of the most important moral authorities behind the Southwest Obi endorsement, is no longer alive. The specific Southwest Elder Network that mobilized behind Obi in 2023 will need to be rebuilt or replaced in 2027. And the NLC alignment, is it still there? The NLC leadership has been more focused on wage negotiations than on political endorsement in 2025 and 2026. Whether they re-engage specifically for the NDC platform is unconfirmed. The silent players who could rebuild or destroy the hidden coalition in 2027 are three. First, Governor Seyi Makinde. The Oyo governor, now a declared 2027 presidential candidate himself, commands significant influence over the Yoruba political establishment that provided the Southwest Obi dissenter bloc in 2023. If Makinde's presidential ambition keeps him separate from Obi rather than allied with him, the Southwest dissenter vote that went to Obi in 2023 may go to Makinde in 2027 instead, splitting rather than concentrating. Second, the NLC National Executive. Watch whether NLC issues any political direction for 2027 and whether it is general or specifically pro-NDC. A specific NLC endorsement of the NDC platform would activate the labor movement communication channel that was so important in 2023. Silence from the NLC would leave the NDC dependent on social media alone, which was sufficient in 2023 but may be insufficient against a more structured APC machine in 2027. The third, the Kwankwaso question. Kwankwaso's Kano base was supposed to add the northern Muslim dimension that Obi's 2023 coalition lacked almost entirely. His potential exit from the NDC removes that dimension and with it, the specific coalition logic that was supposed to make the NDC nationally competitive rather than a primarily southern phenomenon. Whether Kwankwaso's NDC dispute is resolved or escalates is therefore directly tied to whether the 2027 Obi coalition is a genuinely national one or a southern plus Kano one. Now, if what I just laid out surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know your take before we get to the part that changes the whole picture. Let us come back to Fatima in her classroom in Jos. At the beginning of this video, I asked what was it about the 2023 coalition that made it possible for a Muslim Hausa teacher to vote for a Christian Igbo candidate, and what would it take for her to do it again in 2027? Here's the honest answer. What made it possible in 2023 was a specific combination of factors that may never be perfectly replicated. The Muslim ticket activated her concern as a full citizen. Social media gave her access to an alternative political narrative that was not filtered through ethnic or religious community gatekeepers. Former President Obasanjo and Afenifere gave the Obi candidacy a cross-ethnic moral legitimacy that made voting for him feel like a Nigerian choice rather than an Igbo choice. And the NLC's alignment gave union members a political permission signal that reached people like her through their workplace rather than through Twitter. Some of those factors are still present, some have changed, and the NDC platform creates a new variable that did not exist in 2023, a platform that needs to earn the brand recognition that Labour Party built in one extraordinary cycle. My measured conclusion: Obi's hidden coalition was real, was genuinely cross-ethnic, and delivered results that structural political models said were impossible. It can be rebuilt in 2027, but it will not rebuild itself automatically. It requires specific work: Afenifere re-engagement, NLC political signaling, North-Central Christian minority outreach, and the resolution of the Kwankwaso NDC dispute in a way that adds a genuine northern Muslim dimension to a coalition that was otherwise southern and Christian in its composition. Whether that work gets done, and whether people like Fatima in Jos recognize the NDC on the 2027 ballot paper with the same emotional clarity they felt for Labour Party in 2023, is the question that will determine whether 2027 is a repeat of 2023's coalition or a contracted version of it. The question I want to leave you with is this: if you are one of the unexpected voters who voted Peter Obi in 2023, not from the Southeast, not from his obvious base, what would it take for you to vote NDC in 2027? And if something has changed for you since 2023, what changed it? Drop your honest answer in the comments. If this breakdown gave you clarity on what is really going on, do me a favor, share it with one person who needs to understand this. Like the video, subscribe to Niger News Watch, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp.